Bum bum. All right, Maple Gear. We are Adele.
Yeah, Adele.
Nice. And what level are you at?
Level 30. I recently reached it with the Legion pot.
Right. Okay. So to 230. Oh yeah, because you took the pictures yesterday, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sometimes people are like, "Oh yeah, I already gained 4 levels in the last 2 days." I'm like, okay. Some people go ham. So.
Yeah.
All right. We're doing purely equipped, so everything else is pretty much. You've checked like the progression command? Have you checked if you're like roughly at the level there for everything that you want to be at?
I have. So I just press. How do I check it?
I'll put it in the chat right now, and I'll put it on the stream right now as well. So it's kind of like the general thing that I use as like the backbone of to check like where do you want to be at based on your level, because it's really hard to have any kind of comprehensive number that you can just look at and then be like, okay, I'm good. Right? It's pretty hard to say. Like you can't really look at your range, right? Because the range shows a weird number, and a bunch of things that give you a lot of damage aren't shown in your range. Your IED in your stat window isn't even accurate. Like there's a lot of numbers going around in the game that you can't really use as an indicator. So what I go by is like these numbers. So as long as within the level range where you're at, you're roughly around where these numbers say that they want you to be. And this is based on like, just empirical evidence, like what has worked for me, what I've heard from other people, just gathering a bunch of numbers. And this is generally like good. A good balance between like where do you distribute your time and your resources in the game, basically.
Okay.
So you're 230, so we'll be looking at like the late stage here, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
And I'm not really looking at these numbers and like checking everything, but this is kind of what's in my head to be checking at, like where do you roughly want to be at, basically. So like arcane power, we want to be over 300. I don't know where you're at with that.
I'm at. Give me a second. Let me check.
Probably closer to 400, I would guess.
I'm at 580. 580.
Yeah, 580. Okay. Oh yeah. Did you participate in Legion Arena?
Oh yeah, I did.
You got some nice symbols from that.
Yeah.
Nice.
I used it on my morass symbol.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna do that on my Adele as well. It's like easy levels there.
Yeah.
That is really satisfying range though. Beautiful. Except for the 2 on the minimum range, it's a little bit disappointing, but the 5.8 with like 5 zeros looks really nice.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Star Force wise here, we want to be over 200. Yeah, so you're over that. Boost node levels, probably want to be close for your important skills. Probably want to be close to like level 30-ish at least. And then, well, so like that's without the slots. So like including the slots, getting close to like level 40, I guess, like 35 to 40.
Yeah, like most of my main skills are like level 52, except for like Infinity Blade, Runes, and Storm. They're like level 2, 5, and 6.
Yeah. That makes sense. They become much more important later on, but right now they're not like main priority. Yeah. So when it comes to equip specifically, we want to look at the total Star Force to make sure that you're in general kind of in the good ballpark. So you are. So that's good to know. The other thing is like your main stat, right? That implies the potential quite a bit for your stat. So it says, yeah, it's like starts at 13, but it goes all the way up to 40. So we probably want you to be at least at 20, but probably a little bit over 20k.
I'm at 16k right now. Yeah, I'm pretty low on there.
Yep, so that's probably mainly going to be potential lines on equips with low amount of strength, probably, right?
Yeah.
So that makes sense. And what is the other one? Oh yeah, and the other one is the flames and stuff. So is there anything in general when it comes to like upgrading? And so we can go specifically through all the equips, like, okay, potential wise what needs to happen, Star Force wise what needs to happen, flame wise what needs to happen, or we can also go through the equips and just be like, okay, what are the equips you have right now, what are the next steps, and then kind of incorporate the upgrades and like the levels of upgrading everything into that. I don't know what you prefer.
Right now I'm just trying to like get my last 2 remaining superior set.
Yeah.
Like my main goal is like try to get like my boss damage a bit higher, because I don't know if like I'm at 199 right now. I don't think that's like, is it high enough? Let me check the spreadsheet.
Yeah, that's also in spreadsheet, right? So that looks at
Yeah.
the functional damage, so it adds both of them together. So the lower end you want to be like around 300, so you're already over that. But you're aiming like towards 400 at least. But some classes, it's a pretty wide margin, because like with endgame you have 400 to 470 plus, and like I was bursting with my arc earlier and I hit 965, so that's like double what's on here. So it can be very depending on like if you have guild skills on, you have boss damage and familiars, and you have like boss damage lines in your WSE, you had all of that on top of it, and like the temporary title right now, that could be hundreds extra. And I'm not even using like the there's like boss rush potions you can use for even more boss damage, right? Like I could stack even more if I wanted to. But at that point, basically if you can get that high, that means that just full-on attack lines on your weapon, secondary, and emblem will always give you way more than boss lines at that point once you're that high. Okay. But of course, just because it's more doesn't mean you have to change, right? Because more could be like 0.5% final damage more, or it could be like or it could be 10% final damage more. Like it really depends on your total balance of everything. And on the other thing is, of course, like it could be very expensive.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Like, let's see. I was debating because I was trying to get right now my shield, it's at 65 IED, and I was trying to get like, should I just keep it like that, or should I just go for a different stat line for it?
Your secondary?
Secondary, yes. I
Yeah, is it? No, it's fine, it's fine. Just making sure. Okay, is it 65 with 12 strength? Okay, and then have you calculated like functionally what your IED is?
I haven't. I don't know how to do that actually.
Okay. Because it kind of depends on for you. There's a few things that you need to take care of because it's an Adele. Do you know about the difference between visual and functional IED? And how IED is calculated at all?
I know.
Okay, so the basics is basically IED is like your penetration, and bosses have PDR, which is basically armor. That's that's the baseline. So the more IED you have, the more you penetrate the armor, and the lower your damage reduction is when you hit a boss. So the higher the PDR for the boss becomes, the more important your IED becomes comparatively. But there's a sweet spot there, because if you go too high on the penetration, then you will lower your damage that you can get through. But if you go too low on the on the penetration and you go too high on the damage, then there's not enough going through because there's more final damage reduction from the boss. So it depends on how much armor the bosses have that you're attacking that determines what is the ideal distribution between attack lines, boss lines, and IED lines. Specifically on your weapon, secondary, and emblem. But on top of that, also like how do you distribute the points in your Legion grid, and how do you distribute the points between your hyper stats and your link skills. Does that all make sense so far?
Thank you.
So if a boss just has 100% PDR and you have, let's say that your functional IED, like how much you apply to the boss, is 94%, like let's say that's your actual functional number, that means 6% of your damage still gets blocked, so you lose 6% final damage when you hit a boss, basically. So it does the full calculation of your damage and then does times 0.94, and then that's your output on the boss. The further you go in the boss, and it's basically like Helix has 250%, and then Lotus and Damien and everything beyond has 300%. So that means that you still block 94%, but that doesn't mean that your damage gets reduced by 6% if they have 300%. It means they still get reduced by 18%, right? Because 94% of 300 is 282. So there's still 18% left. So you get 18% final damage. So every 1% more of IED when the boss has 300% PDR makes it so that you get 3% less final damage reduction. So, but also because of how IED is calculated, every 1% gets harder to add once you already have a lot. And that goes into how IED is calculated when you're stacking it. So every line of IED essentially gives you that amount of IED based on how much you're still missing to get to 100%. So if you're at 50% and you add 50%, you get half. You get 50% of how much you still need, which is 50%. So you get 25%. So you go from 50 to 75. So every single time, even though the line stays 50%, it becomes a smaller amount every time because there's a smaller amount that it's calculating half over. So if you want to visualize this, it's like you're standing on one side, the boss is standing on the other side, and every line of IED lets you travel that amount of distance closer to the boss to get closer to them, basically. Does that make sense? So every line adds up individually together, but you move less and less close together, even if the sources are equally big, because you move a percentage of the distance. It also means that you can never really reach the person, right? You can never really reach the boss and get to 100%. That's only if one of your sources is fully 100%. And in that case, all the other sources are completely unnecessary. But usually these sources are like just on a single skill, for example, or during a short period of time. They're not 100% uptime. That would be really broken.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
So that also means that if you can get IED, the best is to use large amounts, right? Because to go back to a number example, like let's say you have 80% and you want to see like, okay, do I add 20% from two sources or do I add 40% from one? So in the one case, you take a 40% of the 20%. So you go up by 8%, you go from 8 to 88. In the other case, you go twice, you go 20% of 20%, that's 4%, so you go to 84. But then the second one isn't 4% again. The second one is 20% of 16%, how much you're missing then. So the next one is 3.2, so you're actually going to 87.2. So you're losing 10% efficiency there because it's separated into two blocks. So if there are ever things where you can get one huge block of IED, and that specifically if you need it early on, like your secondary, right, where it's like 30, 35, or some people get on their emblem a line of 40%, those are really huge. Those go a very, very long way. The other thing is getting to 6 scale Legion and hitting filling up the block there to get a 40% IED block there. That's a huge way of getting like static, just a huge amount of IED that you can build around. As far as all the other sources of IED go, typically you just want to max out on IED whenever there's the least amount of... are you familiar with the term opportunity cost?
I am not, actually.
So let's say that you have $3 and you can choose whether you spend it on like an apple or you can spend it on bread or something. Basically, it means that like depending on how expensive the products are, when you buy something, it means you cannot buy something else instead, right? It's not like just the value of what you get, but you also kind of lose the value of what you cannot get by spending the money. That's kind of the thought behind it. So like if you put your hyperstat points all into experience, I mean, if you have the points, you're like, well, I can do that. But in the back of your mind is, well, this goes at the expense of maybe getting level 10 damage, which will help me kill faster, right? So you have to make sure that the opportunity cost there doesn't weigh up. So when you're looking for IED, what you're trying to do is you're trying to get IED sources where the opportunity cost is low. Because remember before, like I talked about the balance between attack, boss damage, IED. You want to be able to get IED where there is almost nothing else to gain otherwise, or where the other stuff that you can gain is very, very much lower value. So for example, like if you could choose to get 30% boss or 15% IED, that's a tough sell. But if you can choose to get 5%, like 5 weapon attack or 10% IED, those are your choices, then you want to get the IED there. Like that's where the opportunity cost is way lower, so that's where you want to go hard on the IED. So those are the things that we look for initially, and then we try to maximize on those sources, and then after that you want to go to the weapon secondary and emblem, because that's where the opportunity cost is the highest. That's where you can get like 40% boss, 12 or 13% attack, right? These are way bigger sources of damage that you have to make sure that you make the right call there. You only want to go for IED there if it's absolutely necessary. And the lucky thing is, as an Adele, eventually, and specifically if you have a 6K Legion, which you do, it is not necessary, quote unquote. Now it does of course take into account those other sources and things like your Golok set. So to circle it all back to the initial question, is your secondary good like this? What we want to do is we want to calculate your functional IED and use that as a point that we're looking for. So that takes us to the difference. So the visual IED is different from the functional IED. By the way, is everything clear up to now? If something isn't, then let me know.
No, it's clear. It's clear. I got it.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Yep. So the IED that you see in your stat window is basically the game saying, regardless of which attack you use and regardless of which target you attack, this is how much IED your attacks will have. But what this does not take into account is individual skill bonuses, hyper passive skills, or boss debuffs. And if either of those three things have 100% uptime, then it is important that you calculate those in, because otherwise that balance that we talked about will be disrupted, because you'll be basing your balance of those stats off of fake numbers, basically. So for you, for example, there's a hyper passive, I believe, that gives you on like cleave and most of your important skills an extra, I think, 20% ID. If you have it.
Cleave, you said?
Yeah, it's like if you check your hyper passives, it's got like the little blue ID is always like a little blue shield with like a cross through it. It's like one of the top 3 ones. Do you see it? It's got like.
Yeah, I see it. Ignore defense 20%.
Yeah, and that doesn't work on every skill, but it works on like your most important skills. So you can count that one. The other thing is, if your boost nodes are over level 40 for your important skills, that gives you 20% ID as well. So if that gives it to you on basically all of your important skills, you can also count that as functionally being 20% higher than you actually are. The other thing, for example, is if you use the Mage Resistance link, the Mage Explorer link skill, that gives you a 9% IED buff on the boss, but that's a debuff on the boss, so that also wouldn't show up in your stat window. And I think there's one more, like Grave Proclamation, but that one isn't really 100% dependable uptime, so we don't count that one. And even then, it's only a 10% source. So if that was a 40% source, we might have to do a little math to see like what is the uptime, how reliable is it. But it's only a 10% source, so it's not that huge at this point in the game, right? Because if you get 10% and you're already at 94 or 95 or however high you are, then you're getting like 0.5% or something. So that's still efficient because of the 300% PDR, but that doesn't. But it's always good to err on the side of caution there and maybe go a little bit over where we want to be with like passive effects, rather than include them and then like overestimate how strong we are, basically.
And what about like crit damage? I know I'm supposed to like get some on glove and stuff. Like, what would be a
So for crit rate, we want to be at 100%. So are you able to be at 100% with decent sharp eyes? Is that?
Yeah, I can be. Like, I also have. Well, I do use link skills too. The Phantom one, and also I think the Barch, the Woman Explorer class. And with that, with crit, decent sharp eyes, I get there. Or also I can just remove that and use guild skill and get there.
Well, the guild skill is critical damage, right? You don't have a crit rate. ID, damage, boss, and crit damage. Yeah. So crit damage is really, really, really good. But in order to fully utilize the crit damage, you want to have your critical rate at 100%. So that one is going to be like. So those are like the two most important puzzles that you do. Like get the IED to where you want it to get, to make sure that you have enough of your damage going through to the boss, and then you can just stack as much attack and boss damage and whatever that you want, and make sure that you have 100% crit rate uptime, and then you can go just stack up as much critical damage as you want, basically. So for critical rate, you want to puzzle between all of the sources, and for IED, you also want to puzzle between all of the sources. So both for crit rate and for IED, I have lists of sources of these, so that you can kind of look through that to see where are you at and like which sources are you. Oh wait, that's crit damage sources, because crit damage is so good. So that's basically this list, and all of them are like linked to commands as well, where you can check on how to distribute points. So you're a little bit over with critical rate. How much are you getting from the archer at level 4? Is that 6%?
Give me a second, let me.
Because I'm not 100%
look
sure.
for it. So yeah, for it's 8%, because 8%? I have two archers. Yeah, because level 2 it's 4%, so 2 of them would be 8%.
And level 6 is 10%, right?
Yeah, actually it says 7%. I guess that's an add up, right?
7? Yeah,
Yeah,
because it goes from 2 to 4 to 7 to 10. Yeah, the numbers are weird because it goes to 10 at 7, so it's like point something. Yeah. Okay, 7%. So you're getting 7 from Focus Spirit, 7 from the Explorer Archer, and then 15 from Phantom, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So that's 29 from there. And how much are you getting from your Legion grid? Because you have quite a big Legion, so we can maybe utilize... okay, you're not getting none from there.
Yeah.
Okay, so your Legion is like an army of level 140s, right?
200 and 150s.
Yeah, how many 200s do you have?
Give me a second, I gotta count.
Well, I mean, it can be like more than like maybe 6 or so, or maybe... Oh wait,
16?
because... Oh no, because I'm thinking about 8k Legion, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
16, level 200, and then you undo the rest are like 150s.
Yeah. Okay, let's okay. So the one thing is that if you need the Archer link to get to 100%, like that's fine. But since the only thing it does is just give you like flat crit, basically what you're using it for, it does go like the opportunity cost again, the thing comes back, is a little bit higher than for other things because of what it goes at the expense of. But it depends on what other links you would have to replace it with. So which other links do you have available? You have pretty much every link, right? Because you have like almost 7k Legion, so I'm assuming you have pretty much all of them.
Everyone except the Jet one. I
Jet
can't level them.
Okay.
It gets so boring. But yeah, I got everything. Like when I removed the Archer one, I'm stuck at 96% crit rate. So I could probably... I actually don't know what I could remove it on, but I could use Judgment for like the 4% crit if I do get 100%, I guess. From what's that? Psychic class again?
Kinesis?
Yeah, Kinesis.
Yeah, that crit damage is quite nice. I'm thinking what I use here, and then you would replace. Basically replace with crit. This is your this is your mobbing setup? Or just a general setup?
This is just like my I guess bosses setup, I guess. I do replace what's called Pirate Blessing for my Demon Slayer's link skill for the extra plus damage, but yeah. I don't know which is the best link skill for bossing and like.
Okay. Well, we'll go over that real quick, I guess. So when it comes to bossing, so for both mobbing and bossing, your priority is get crit rate to 100% and get crit damage if you have it. So that would be like the Kinesis link and just all of the crit rates links that you need to get to 100%. Those are the most important ones in both situations. Then on top of that, you can take you take whatever gives you the most utility for that situations. So for bossing, that could be, if you need it, like the Miha link skill, which you don't need, you have 100% knockback resistance. It could be Spirit of Freedom, so that after you die, you have invincibility for a while. That could be useful, for example, if you're dying on Lotus Laser, that if you respawn, you don't respawn, walk right into the laser again and die again, stuff like that.
It happened to me earlier.
Yeah, exactly. So especially when you're practicing bosses and trying to get better, that could be like the training wheels that you might need to get more comfortable with the boss. And then once you get stronger, or you need the damage from other links, you can move out of that. Personally, I like just having that there and just relying on that and not needing to rely on the damage for the other link skill. But that's more like a personal preference. Some people with more iframes, good character control, maybe lower ping, take a bit more risk there. So that Spirit of Freedom, Close Call, and the Mihail link, like those are like kind of like the utility ones that you pick what you need when you're bossing, and as much as you're comfortable with. And then comes just like more and more damage. So like Light Wash is very important for Lumi. The Demon Slayer one, that's a lot of damage. And then Demon Avenger is a lot of damage, and Arc. Those are like really beefy, chunky boys. And then Kadena is also really important once you can debuff the boss. So I think you only have Grave Proclamation and Empirical Knowledge as debuffs. So as long as you don't have Empirical Knowledge, the Kadena isn't that good for you. It's only 6% damage. But once you have the Explorer Mage set of links, so I would use that. Because then you can get 9% damage and 9% IED from that at level 6, which basically makes it better than Elementalism, right? Because that one's 10% damage, so you're changing 1% damage for 9% IED, which again, like the opportunity cost is very low. You're losing 1%, but you're gaining a line of 9% IED. So we want to squeeze in that IED wherever we can, and it's 100% uptime because you're constantly going to be hitting the boss at least 3 times for those debuff stacks. And on top of that, it'll allow you to activate the 6% extra damage from Kadena, so you can get a 12% damage link in there. So it's worth the switch there.
Okay.
So the ideal... and then for mobbing, instead of all of those boss damage ones and IED ones, you switch those out for Evan, Aaron, Mercedes, so that you can get more experience when you're killing, basically. And to make sure that your base... your baseline of damage goes up rather than your burst damage goes up. So like even as an Adele, you might think of maybe the Angelic Busterling skill if you're bossing, because you can pop all your bursts at the same time, right? And you can combine it with the 40 or 60% extra damage, I think, depending on the level of the Angelic Buster. Especially combined with Ruin, it's really good. You just pop, you can pop Ruin, then pop the Angelic Blessing, and then what's it? Terms of Conduct, no, contract orders, whatever, whatever the name is. Terms and conditions. There you go. And then you just like do a lot of extra damage on that skill. It's perfect for Damien when he's in the air doing the cheese balls, for example. You have nothing that can really hit him. You just pop the Ruin down there and pop terms and conditions, and you still hit him for a big chunk of damage. And then Rin's Blessing will specifically become less and less important because it's only a source of 10% IED. Keen Edge will go away because it's not enough damage by itself. Hybrid Logic will get phased out, not because it's bad, but because other things are just better. And it'll be better to have extra utility on other link skills than to have 10% all stat. So that basically, in this situation, what we want to do would be to replace, let's see what the ideal situation would be, like to replace Elementalism with the Explorer Mages, replace Hybrid Logic with Kadena, and then replace Keen Edge with the Angelic Buster. We probably want to get rid of the Archer as well, but we also have the Pirate Blessing that we can get rid of. So okay, who are in and who are out? Because you basically want to have these, and you already have Noble Fire, so you need to leave room. Oh yeah, so Fury Unleashed needs to go in there, 100%. So that'll be like instead of Pirate Blasting, for example. And then you still have 2 that we can switch in. Yeah, then either like Spirit of Freedom for the invulnerability, for like more utility for the bosses, which I think is a good idea. And then since you don't have Core Aura, the only one you can throw in there on top of that would be like Thieves Cunning.
I can get it up there. I'm just waiting for the next burn. I think during the winter we're getting a level 200 burn.
Well, you can roll the... Oh yeah. We'd go... Yeah, during Neo we'll have Terror Burns, yeah. They'll be fine. Yeah, it's basically even though between the two. I think they cover about the same. Like one would be better for mobbing, right? The jet skill would be better for mobbing to just get your average kill speed up, and then the other one would be better for bossing. It's just more percentage damage there, stacking. Or you throw in the new skill, right? The Cane, but it'll be pretty much the same as the Explorer Thief one, kind of similar. Okay. Yeah, so that's what I would switch out for bossing. And then for mobbing, you take out all the boss damage, you take out the bossing utility, like the Spirit of Freedom, you take out the unfair advantage because you're not going to be like multi-hitting monsters as much, take out the terms and conditions, and then switch in the training skills or the flat damage ones instead.
What does the jet lens skill does actually?
You basically just you use cubes to roll it and to tier it up, and then once you get potential that you like, you can also rotate it if it's in the right configuration but not in the right spot. You can rotate it to fit the stats that you want, and then you can lock it in. And then basically it gives you about the same as Keen Edge, but the possible numbers are way higher. It can give you up to 35 in each stat and weapon or magic attack. So you can keep rolling forever until you get like 35 everything, but you'll probably spend like $1 trillion. Or you can just do like, I want to get 30 plus in strength and 30 plus in weapon attack, and then lock it, and that'll probably cost you like somewhere between 500 mil and 1.5 bill or something, depending on how high you're aiming there. If you want to sell for 31, that's fine. If you want to aim for like 34, 35 is the max. So pretty good would be like, I don't know, like 33 on both or something. That would be pretty doable money wise, and that basically means you just get like more than double what Keen Edge gives you in one slot instead. But it costs you some money. You don't just straight up get it. The other gains, yeah, so we definitely will want to look at like getting rid of the Explorer Archer here at 7%. So we do have to fill that. There's some other crit that you can do to fill it. There's a little bit that you can get from familiar badges. There's at least one there that's easy to get. I don't know if you have that yet.
I actually haven't been focusing on familiar much. I confuse how they work, but I'll eventually get there.
Yeah, so it's good to look into that though. I have a familiar guide under !familiars, because the other thing where the opportunity cost, and we can get to that right now, I guess, for IED is very low, is by getting familiars with IED lines, because you can get that on the lowest tiers of familiars, and you can get to 2 familiars very quickly. And so basically what it all boils down to is I think that your current IED, we can throw it into the calculator and do like all the nitty-gritty numbers and do the maths. But what it'll pretty much come down to is like number-wise, it's close to this. So if you want to do the maths, you can use this calculator as well. It's under !IED. You just put whatever you have in here, like, there's going to be some stuff already in here. Some stuff doesn't even exist anymore, like the Leafer Codex or Arcane Weapon. And then you switch it out with what you have. So you have Abzo Weapon, I think, right? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
With the beautiful top line. So Web, so that gives you 10% IED, and then Abzo Set gives 10%, and then your Lumi Link gives 15. Because the other thing is also that your visual IED in your screen is also rounded up. So if you have this much, it'll show up as 91. Or if you have 90.01, it'll show up as 91. So it's also important, therefore, to calculate your functional and not just look at your screen, because you might get a really weird number. I don't have Superior Galaxy yet. How is Monster Proc? Are you working on that to get the medal?
Okay.
Okay.
I have to run on Monday, and everything else is 0.
Okay.
I've been...
Because that's another one of the sources where the opportunity cost is very low, because the only thing it's going at the expense of is just like a little bit of stat. And the main thing is right now, you don't feel like you need a lot of IED, but the main thing is now that if you have, let's just keep adding sources to where you are now, like, and then you have the boost nodes, and you have the hyper skill, and then you can get the Explorer Archer on top of that, Explorer Mage, sorry. Like, this is probably what you're at right now, but the problem is if you take away the 35 and the 30, let's say roughly this, from your secondary, you're left with this, and that's not high enough. You want to be, that's like the bare minimum for the beginning of the stages. You want to be closer to 94 to 95 functional. So what you can do here is if you add familiars with 15%, you add 2 of those, now you're home free basically. And then you add Gollux on top of that, and it's like, we're like super clean, right? So yeah, right now the IED is probably a good placeholder, but once you get the familiars, you can already roll out of it. And then if you get Gollux, that's like you get settled into basically like the late game and into the end game numbers. You're getting closer to that. Because yeah.
And I should definitely like reroll my glove for crit damage once I get the 100% crit and stuff.
Yeah, so getting the 100% crit might partially be also part of the Legion grid. Look at the Well, I want to go through the equips first, and then we can circle back to the grid. But yeah, critical damage here. It's going to make your range go down, but it's going to make your actual damage output go way up, yeah. Like 1 line of critical damage is like equivalent of almost 40% stat, I believe. So it's just, yeah, it's like even better than if you triple prime it. So typically people keep rolling either with red cubes until you hit like 8% damage, 8% critical damage with 1 line of strength, or you go for black cubes to go for 2 lines of critical damage. But that's pretty expensive. You can use a calculator to kind of try to predict how much it's going to roughly cost to see if it's a good idea to even aim for it or not. Or you can, you can go for 1 line of crit damage, 1 line of strength first, and then use black cubes over that. And then, if you don't get it, it's fine. You can just keep your old potential, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, to just get the whole baseline right. Yeah, I'm trying not to focus too much on the other stuff, but the thing is that equips can sometimes feel very important, but it might be more important to have all the other stuff figured out first, and then your equips will kind of just fall into place, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, link skills, hyperset wise, I think you're good on that. You don't need to add more crit, but there's the ability to, so that's always interesting. So that's probably why your when it comes to your Legion grid, that's probably why it's not super important to fill out the ID completely now, because of your secondary, which is okay for now. It would be better overall for your damage though, just to try to fill out the critical damage completely. I think that's more important. And just if you move 1 piece from your boss damage into your critical rate, just to fill out the critical rate that you'll be missing once you roll out of the Explorer Archer, that's fine, because 1 block in Legion for critical rate is also 1 block for boss damage, so you're basically exchanging fairly there. Which also means for your beast tamer that it's kind of like if you get 1 more level, you basically gain 6%, right? Gain 3% crit and 3% boss, so it's like you're gaining 6 squares in your Legion for one level link skill.
Yeah.
That's also why it's really good to get the Shade, the Hayato, and the Jet. If you can get those to 200 is very good, because then they give a lot of critical damage.
My Shade is almost there. 6 more levels to go.
Okay, close. Yeah, because they give 5% critical damage each, so that's basically the equivalent of 10 squares on the grid per character on top of what they already do. So that those characters are basically represented by like 14 squares if they're level 200.
Sure.
So it's kind of how you want to look at the value of certain characters, I guess.
I think that was everything.
So for IED, does that kind of show you where the priorities are? Do you know where to go to find how to move forward with IED specifically? Is that clear enough?
Yeah, you explained it. I'll just need to work on it a little bit more.
But like specifically, so like unlocking familiars, try to get 2 familiars with IED. So just like reveal all of them, check for IED. Get at least 1 badge completed. There's a very easy one, just like Edelstein on the left. There's those 3 guys form 1 set. If you complete 1 set, you unlock your 2nd slot, and then you can equip 2. So then you have 2 of 15%. What you can do for now, if you don't want to have to redo your weapon yet, what you can do now is just roll out of IED in your Legion board and just move that into critical damage and boss damage, and a little bit into critical rate instead. And then keep that until you redo your secondary, but probably wait until you have the Golok stuff, I would say, and then redo the secondary, and then move the pieces back into ignore defense. And by that time, you'll also have maybe bigger Legion, maybe bigger pieces, and then you'll have to move some stuff around anyway, and then move back into IED basically. Long-term work on the Monster Parker Medal. Explorer Archer link skill in the mix for bossing, and what other ID?
What would be the best place to farm for familiar?
I don't know if I would actively farm for. Haven't you gotten like a bunch of familiars just from mules from leveling them?
No.
You haven't? Oh, okay. Once you get to if you can go to Moonbridge at like 235, they just drop like crazy. But otherwise, like if you really want to farm for them for a while, like Forsaken Excavation Site is really easy. They drop both common and rare ones, and you know the monsters are all packed really close together, so you can get a lot of cards there if you want to. But otherwise, I would just do it like through leveling my Legion and through leveling characters, and then just putting all the familiar cards in storage and just opening them all up on the main character. Oh, 245 for Moonbridge, yeah, sorry. 235 is Sphera, my bad. But yeah, until you get to 245 on Moonbridge, you can't really... You won't really en masse get like a bunch of cards. And it's not super necessary for you right now, but I would go into the ID before you reroll your secondary.
It is the like before the I had like most of my characters before the familiar reroll. Like
Mhm.
that's got to change and stuff like that. So
Yeah. No, that's fine, yeah.
and I would just have Junior Boogie for like classes that needed a lot of mana and not that kind.
Right, the old boogie. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
And some people use like the what was it, like the crocodile from Mulong or something that gave some MP as well, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah. Either that or blue snail, red snail, like from Future.
Mono, the mutant snail, that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, the healing one. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so that's for ID, and then and that's for ID and crit, right? So we can get rid of one link. We can move a little bit of crit into the board. And other than that, we're pretty good on crit. You do have 6% crit on your Dominator Pendant, and that's a temporary one, so you do have to take that into account whenever you switch out of that. That you have to make up for that 6% crit somewhere. But you'll be higher level by then. You'll have more hyper stats available. Maybe your Marksman and your Night Lord in your Legion board will give you some critical rate. And you're already like close to 7k Legion, so I'm not scared of any of that. You can always just put one extra character or two extra characters from your grid into crit rate. You can just freely exchange between crit rate and boss damage, basically. Once you have the ID filled and the critical damage filled, and just put enough in critical rate to make sure you add to 100, and then whatever has left goes into boss damage, basically, for you.
Got it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, then equip specifically. So like basically at this point you want to just look at events, right? Like what events are coming up. So there's 1+1 Star Force event coming up pretty soon. Well, pretty soon, I think in like 2 weeks plus. That'll be a good time to get everything to 15 that you want to eventually get beyond 15. So I think sorry?
Does one, is it 1+1? I thought it was only for up to 10, or is it beyond that?
Yeah, it can still, if it succeeds at 10, you still go from 10 to 12. So it is still, it gives you a discount of going from up to 15, just because 10 to 12 saves you one extra Star Force there. It's not like an insane difference between doing off event, but it's still a little bit cheaper. 30% off is cheaper, but we had a 30% off like 2 weeks ago, so that's probably going to be a while until the next one. So most likely we're going to have the 1+1, and then the next Star Force event, you know, it's like conjecture, but like most likely is going to be the 5, 10, 15. And then for the 5, 10, 15, you want to have everything at 15 already, so that you can jump from 15 to 17 during that event. So it's probably going to be a good idea to go to 15 during the 1+1 that's upcoming now.
Gotcha.
So I probably do that on the Superior Belt, on the Abzo Cape, because you're going to have to safeguard, right? On the weapon, we'll get to the pendants in a second. On the tattoo, on the shoulder. Sea Razor already 17, that's nice. And there was one more item. Yeah, on the monocle. Back marker say there. Shoes already there.
Right now, my black bean is much better than my Cormys.
Yeah, because of set bonus, that makes sense. But if we'll talk about that in a bit. But we do want to move around from that, yeah. And then the Kana treasure and the superior earrings as well. Like those are all good candidates for just like safeguarding up to 15. So I would safeguard if you don't have backups or you don't want to boom. If you do have a bunch of backups, you can do without safeguarding, like maybe for the tattoo and the monocle. But it depends on how many dineros you have backup and how much you want to risk that. Yeah, it depends on how much money you make. You do have like a bunch of legendary stuff. I don't know if you have a Kana farmer.
I started recently working on that.
Yeah.
Actually,
Uh-huh.
I'm kind of broke right now.
Kind of regret. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
But I would start saving up money for the Star Force event. And you can use the calculator to see like how much will it cost on average during an event, and put in the levels of the items, whether you're going to safeguard or not. I can show that real quick. So you have like Star Force and then the calculator.
Most of these potential from when it was what's it called, DMT, when it was like very laggy.
The really bad DMT, I see.
Yeah.
So here 2 stars up to 10 with safeguard. So it's going to be like 6 to 700 mil probably per Abzo. So it will add up pretty quickly. But Star Forcing to 15 is kind of like thankless. You don't really gain that much from it, but it is very important work, like foundational work to get up to 17, right? You probably noticed with your CRA when you went 15 to 17 is a really, really big difference. So you want to be able to make that difference on all the Abzo stuff and the level 160 stuff as well. It's going to be a lot of weapon attack that you gain there. So when it comes to upgrading, that's probably like a good idea because of the event, right? We wanna go around the event, so that's a good idea to work on. If you like earn any cubes in the meantime, like Master Craftsman cubes, I would just like throw those onto like your monocle, your belt, you know, just to see if you can get them to unique like that. Just like slowly give some value to those cubes.
Yeah, that's what I've been working on that.
Mm-hmm.
No luck.
No, one item at a time, I guess.
Yeah.
The other thing is with your current pendant setup, you're planning to would you be planning to like replace the Sweetwater pendant with the Superior when you get it?
I don't know which was better. I thought it would be like remove dominant for the dumb pendant for superior. I don't know if it's like which is better than the other.
The Dominator is currently counting for the set bonus, right? So you're getting the +5 set. And it does have the crit rate and the 15% strength already on it, and it has 15 stars. So I think temporarily that one would be better, but eventually you want to get a real Dominator pendant from Arc. Are you killing normal Arc as a daily boss?
Yeah, I'm not getting luck with that either.
No, that's that makes sense. Once you get more drop rate, that's when you see that more and more. So yeah, so that's kind of like the thing. So the Star Force thing is one thing, and then pendant and ring you're looking for. Oh wait, so you already have the 2 drops, but you're working on the coins now for Helix, right?
Yeah.
And are you able to solo it, or do you duo it or something?
I think I could solo it because I got to second form. Just like my mechanic is very bad. Most of the time I just go with like my guild and stuff. But I can definitely solo it if I can just like work on my mechanic. That's what I've been doing it slowly, like trying to get better. I got to second form 2 days ago.
Yeah, well, first one is just annoying, and if it takes a while, then yeah, it's not really fun. I get that, especially because it's so repetitive so many times, and it's not really a guarantee just go in and clear, because every single time is more annoying.
Also, like, it's very buggy, like with the portal, because like we're using the
portal, yeah, the breath across the map, and yeah, it's not super fun. Yeah, no, I get that. Because the other thing, so once you get the Star Force, like all that stuff to 15, the other thing there is like slowly flaming stuff up, and that basically, that's like on the side. If you just get flames from bosses, basically aim for the flame score that's here in the grid. Are you familiar with the flame score and how that works?
I tried to go for stat. Is that what I'm supposed to go for?
Yeah, so what the flame score basically does, it looks at all the things that give you damage on a flame, and it throws them all into one number that kind of represents, like, if everything was flat stat, how much flat stat would this be? So like, depending on how strong you are and how how many sources of damage you have. Like if you gain 3% all stat and 4 attack and 20 dex and 30 strength, like how much strength would that be if you add that all up together? So it's like a rough approximation, but what it tries to do also is it tries to predict once you go further in the game and the balance of the stats between your account changes, how good will it be then, and not like how good is it right now. Because sometimes, you know, if you switch an item around, or you know, you go from 3 items that have no strength percentage to like having 30%, suddenly you have a way more percentage strength, which can change the balance of how good a flame is. Because like how much one attack is versus one stat versus 1% all stat, that balance will change a little bit. So what the flame score tries to do is predict how good it will be once all of your stuff is kind of upgraded in the same way as the progression grid kind of shows. So as long as you have items whose flame scores are like way below the numbers here that are shown as like a guideline, then you're pretty safe to flame them, because the chance that you're going to upgrade is very high. And that you always want to look at the difference between the current item and the difference between the current flame and then the flame that is realistic to get. So I do have a video on that which goes way more in depth, and we're already kind of like over time right now, so I'm not gonna like go through the whole the whole flame explanation. But this video basically goes into like how can you look at an item, know what type of item it is, know how good the flame should be, and then compare to how good do you want the flame to be, and as a result you can kind of prioritize which item do I flame first and which one do I flame later. But right now I would just do that with flames that you get from bosses. I wouldn't specifically buy any flames or anything right now, especially since you said that you were poor. So the thing after that is like in general your potentials are already pretty good, I would say. There's definitely some work there, but if you want to do the thing where you have the Kana farmer on the side, so with Neo, death experience loss is going to be removed. So that does mean that your character will be leveling further and further and further. That's an important thing to know for, do you want to get a Kana farmer, and if so, how far do you want to fund it? Do you just want to like stay in Lechaline and get some easy mezzo, or are you going to go all the way to Arcane, where getting a lot of nodes, boost nodes to get the enough kill speed is more important? That's kind of like your decision. The other decision that weighs into that is like how much of your money is going to go towards funding the farmer first, so that you can make that money back faster, right? And how much time do you have in a month? Like at the end of the month, do you still have totems left that you can use to train on your main and get money while you're training on your main? Or do you generally like run out of totems because you train a lot and then you have time left to play the Kana? It's kind of like for your personal situation, that I would say that adds or detracts value from the Kana farmer as well, I would say. Because
I only like spent 3 bill trying to get like my draft gear and MapleStory. Like right now I'm at like 40% meso gear and 59% drop rate on Kana.
That's a good start. Yeah, so depending on if you want to rely more for the money on the Kana or less, that depends on what the next step kind of is for the Adele. Because generally, like if everything is 15 and you're just waiting for a 5, 10, 15 event, the potentials are all pretty good. You're waiting for those Abzo equips. No, sorry, not Abzo. Gollux equips, and you can't really fast track that. And you're slowly working on the potential, slowly working on the flames. The next step before like you finalize anything there would be to get all your accessories to legendary and get meso and drop lines there, because your character will be able to kill very quickly, especially as an Adele, and also get a lot of money while you're training from the meso and the drop rate there. So you could do that on your main character, but I would mainly do that is if you feel like you don't really play more than the amount of totems you have access to. Because then you can just make money while you're training, and you won't make as much money as when you're like farming on another character maybe, but you'll be gaining experience at the same time, which I think is also very valuable, and then you could do 2 things at once. But of course, so it depends. If you don't have enough totems, or like you can't finish all the totems, then I would like focus more. I would personally think it's more valuable to go for meso and drop on the Adele and just get more out of your training, versus if you finish all your totems and you've got like 2 weeks left every month where you don't have totems anymore because you ran out, then having the Kana farmer where you can have like the good spawn and the good rates there, that would have way more value. So it kind of depends on what situation you're in, how much you plan on playing, how you want to balance that, or how active you want to train. But in that sense, Adele is also kind of, easy training, right? So not super complicated, yeah. So it's also like a little bit AFK-ish, because that can also be an argument, like you don't want to spend a lot of energy and attention to train. That could be a thing as well. So, just take all of that into account, because that kind of goes into like, do you want to go hardcore into the accessories on the Adele, or do you want to put that off until a little bit later and just focus on getting like 9% strength on everything and just leaving it there for now, and focusing more on money on the Kana, so that the Kana can come fully online and start generating a lot of income.
Yeah, I usually don't train that much. Whenever I get a totem from those for the daily thing, I just use it until it's like when it's about to get expired. And that's like my only training. The only thing I do is like daily. That's about it.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of value still in leveling. We get extra slots in the Matrix. You get some hyper stats. You get some ability points, of course. Access to new symbols, speeding up the symbols of the previous areas. There's a lot of value in leveling still, and I think if you're training and you have good totem coverage on your main character, you can get more fun out of training, because you can also make a lot of money still while doing it. I'm not 100% sure on like the Adele rates, but I'm pretty sure since you have a decent Legion, you probably have okay coverage with Legion coupons as well, that you can probably get 500 to 600 mil an hour just from training on the Adele, which won't necessarily be that much worse than what you can get with a Kana, depending on... I'm wondering for your situation, and it will kind of feel bad now because you already started investing billions into the Kana. I wonder how, with the way that you play, if the startup cost for the Kana, if that will ever really be worth it over just continuing growing and building out the Adele by itself, if you have that much room for growth when it comes to like training. Because what makes you want to like farm on the Kana when you don't feel like training on the Adele? That's kind of like, I guess, if you can answer that and have a good answer to that, then you can just shut me up, I guess.
No, the reason I don't train on the Adele too much is because like of school and stuff. Like, so whenever I have free time, I just try to go on. Like for the Kana, right now I'm just doing coin daily on both of them, and then just call it a day, trying to get
right. So is it more because you can't really have stretches of 2 hours on end for like that are free?
Yeah, pretty much. Like I usually do like a lot of my training doing my vacation stuff. That's why like that's why I'm creating the Kana. It's good.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's a very good argument. Yeah. Okay. So that shut me up. Yeah. Too. Yeah. That's one of the things where you don't want to be locked in into a certain map, and maybe you want to be grinding more when you feel that you don't have the feeling like you should be doing something else, right? Because that's in the back of your mind, like you should be working at school, you should be looking for a better job, you should be this, you should be that. You want to do it like when you don't have too many responsibilities and you can just like sit and relax and just like grind for 6 hours or something and just turn your brain off, right?
That's what I did during the summer when Adele came out.
Yeah, exactly. No, okay. That makes more sense now then. Yeah. Then I feel more comfortable saying like that's probably a good idea. So yeah. So prep the money for so look at when the Sundays, look at when the event is, look at roughly how much it's going to cost, and then plan accordingly that you have that much money left to at least do the star forcing. Slowly flame on the side, keep working on those dailies, right? Monster Park important. The Narrows if you need the backups for Sweetwater stuff, because the accessories, the eye in the face, those are going to become more important, especially than the Black Beam Mark now, because once you get past 15 stars and you get all of that extra weapon attack, they're going to blow the set bonus that you have right now completely out of the water. So you want to prepare for having it ready for them, basically. And having the Narrows backup will allow you to not need to safeguard, and that will save you a bunch of money. Golox, very important. Keep doing the weekly bosses that you can to build backups, to get souls, and soul shards for your weapon. Slowly working on the familiars and getting familiar with with that stuff. keep doing. Normal arc, very important. And then yeah, slowly flaming. So the few items I saw that can make a big gains, for example, is your glove and your cup, I believe. Those can get a lot of gains. But basically check the flame video and then check the progression grid, and then you can very clearly see like where is the biggest room for growth and where am I already pretty close to where I want to be, you know?
One more question, I'm sorry. Is
sure.
it worth getting Papalatus thingy? What's it called?
Oh, the Papalatus mark?
Yeah.
If you can get it, yeah, but the thing is that it has a very low drop chance, so it's not something you can really rely on.
Okay.
I got one today, but the general drop rate for it is just really, really bad. If you, yeah, at your position, so what have you like soloed already? Because I think, have you soloed like Akechi, Chaos Zakum, Hard Magnus? Have you soloed all of these?
When I was a little bit weaker, I tried Akechi last week and I almost killed it. Lotus, me and my friend doed it when I was like around 14k stat. We got to like 10%. I think I could solo it. I just need to work on the first form. And I could solo Quark, no problem. Vellum take a little bit of time, like probably like 5 minutes ish, maybe a little bit lower. I don't know.
Yeah.
I could solo that.
Could you do Hard Magnus?
I can, but the thing is, once it's like gets super low, I killed it once myself, but like it's just like
annoying.
when it gets super low, just my mechanic of dodging skill. But I can kill it. Like I just wait for my skills.
Yeah, so yeah, exactly. So some quick tips, like if you die in HMAG, just stay dead, wait for your cooldowns to come back, try to die in the middle of the map, never fight on the sides. That's important. When it comes to Lotus, from what I heard, you can use the what is it called, like the flutter step, like the thing that makes you fly back. You can use that to go through the lasers in phase 1.
I thought like when you dash in, right?
So yeah, not resonance rush, but the one where you you get like teleported back, like through the air a little bit.
Feather float.
Yeah, feather float, that one. Yeah, you can use that one to go through the lasers on the bottom if you time it correctly. So that can help you stay on the bottom and then just focus on cleave and hunting decree to kill the robots and not having to worry about walking around the map and getting stunned and getting pushed into laser up there, because that's where most of the death happens usually.
Thank you so much.
Yep. And then CPAP and Akechi should be available, should be possible after that. But probably if you go through all the things that we talked about today and do like the initial changes there, I think you'll already be very far on your way to being able to do those bosses way more reliably. And then it's just going to be a matter of like Star Force event and the other stuff we talked about and the things that are a little bit more midterm until you can get to like soloing Lotus.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, because CPAP, I have a video for CPAP as well, because it is annoying, and it is from the perspective of my Adele. I'll link that one to you as well on how I did it.
I've seen it. I was watching it for advice.
Okay, yeah, it's good. It's just got to be practice, and there's a bunch of like dying before you get better. Of course, you see me doing on my Adele, but and I'm not great at it with my Adele, and definitely make some mistakes. But of course, before this, I have like 200 runs of experience on 5 other characters at this point. So, even though I'm not really good, so if you're a better Adele player than me, which you probably are, then you already have like an advantage when it comes to Adele mechanics, but maybe not to boss, to experience. So I've died more times, so I know what to avoid better. Yeah,
not
but
up there yet. I'm getting there slowly.
Yeah, slowly but surely, for sure. Yeah, so definitely check the flame. For the Legion pieces, probably move into crit damage, a little bit into crit rate, and then once you have the familiars and you get the Golic stuff, redo the secondary, then move back into the IED here. Move out of and then move around the link skills. I think you'll find that pretty useful as well. And the last thing, like, definitely get those link skills all at least to rank 2, because I think the Demon Avenger, oh no, this is level 2. I see the 1 and then I think it's level 1, but that's like how many times you can change it. Never mind.
Oh no, my Demon Avenger is pretty high because it used to be my main before Adele.
I see. You moved up in the world.
Yeah, like it have like pretty good recruit, just very bad potential.
I see.
Yeah, so I just
yeah, put lower emphasis on your potential, more on Star Force for now, and then yeah, don't neglect the flaming on the side. Make sure you keep doing your bosses to get like good flame income. But work on all the Star Force, everything 17 first before you go back to potentials, I would say. And then glove first, secondary after that, and then, you know, then strength on everything else, basically.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay. Good luck.
Yeah. Thank you. Have a good one.
I'll see you around. Yes, have a good one. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Now, we truly had to rush through that one. You guys might be, wow, that was a fast progression session. That was supposed to be equip only, so that was still 20 minutes over. That was still 50% over. I can't help myself. I have to go over everything. Because I can't be like, okay, yeah, you need to like switch out your pendant and then flame your cape or something, whatever. And then, oh, the cape flame needs a lot of work too, by the way. And then, but then like, just like ignore this, you know? Like, I can't ignore this. Even though this looks worse than it is because there's like holes in it and everything, like it's not that bad. But I can't ignore the foundation of like which link skills you're using and where your stuff is, because it is all interconnected, right? Like what you're getting your ID from, what you're getting your critical rate from, like it matters. Yeah, it just matters. Where's my advice? I mean, it sounds like you need to simple a little harder. Okay, so if this was informative to you, I'm glad. Hopefully, you can pick something up from this session. Make sure you check !commands or !info in my Twitch chat for access to all of the resources, everything we talked about. Check the description to see if you want a session like these as well, like this as well, or if you have info for me in terms of battle analysis, monster skill per hour, or training videos in Moonbridge or higher for Reboot. I would love to get your input on those things. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.